Hi everybody. I've done some videos about communism, or maybe rather against communism, in the past, and I didn't really want to talk about it again because I'm really getting tiresome of the topic. But recently, in the US, there is a lot of everybody's talking about politics in the US because of the upcoming election and because of Donald Trump, and a lot of people are for him and a lot of people are against him, and I don't really care. But it makes everybody in the US talk about politics, not only in the US, also here in Germany. Everybody is also talking about, for example, Donald Trump, and everybody in Germany, of course, hates Donald Trump because he's the embodiment of everything that Germans were taught to hate about the US, in the Third Reich and in Eastern Germany. He embodies evil capitalism, So, of course, every German has to hate him, and they do hate him. And I'm not a fan of him either, but for different reasons. And I don't really care. Well, it's not like I don't know the guy. I have nothing against him. But anyway, it makes everybody talk about politics. And when people talk about politics, what I noticed, especially in the US, there were I think there were only two major parties in the US, and they're always, slandering each other. And when one party slanders the other party, or any party slanders any party in the US, they always bring up stuff like, oh yeah, vote for us because the other party, those are all fascists. Or vote for us because the other party, those are all communists. It's always arguments like that. Basically, it boils down to stupid arguments like that. And that's because I feel that a lot of people in the US, because they have not experienced it and they don't really know what they're talking about, I feel they really don't know what communism is. And they also don't know what National Socialism is. They don't know what socialism is at all. So, and that goes for both parties. That goes for the conservatives attacking the communists. They don't know what communism is, and the the other guys. Some of them, most of the people in the US, of course, they're not communists. But everywhere there are some communists, and that goes for, and there are some communists in the US as well. I mean, it's not as many as, the conservatives would want you to believe. There is no Red Scare or something, But of course, everywhere in the world you have some communists, and you also have some communists who are really communists, and who don't just get labeled as communists, who label themselves as communists, even in the US. And I feel they don't understand what communism is either. So because when I hear a lot of communists in the US talk about communism, I'm hearing a lot of stuff like the argument that I'm hearing a lot lately from people in the US in support of communism. They're saying, oh yeah, communism is a good thing because look at Europe, and look at the Scandinavian countries in Europe, like Sweden. They have socialism, right? Sweden is a socialist state, and they're doing great, right? What the bleep? I don't know. What the heck gave those people the impression that Sweden would be a socialist country? I don't get it. I don't get it. It seems to me that people in the US don't know the first thing about socialism. You know, countries, most countries in Europe, and that includes all those Scandinavian countries, they're either democracies or they're parliamentary monarchies, both of which are actually what communists oppose, right? And that goes for Sweden as well. Sweden is not a socialist country, not at all, because socialism is also, well, it's a lot of things, but above all, it's an economic system. It's a state economy. Sweden does not have a state economy. Sweden does not have a communist party ruling it. Sweden is not at all a socialist country. Sweden is a democracy and a parliamentary monarchy, like I said. It has nothing to do with socialism. The reason why some Americans are saying Sweden would be a good example why socialism works after all, the reason they say that is that it seems they have confused what do you call it, a social welfare state with socialism. You know, it seems that because both has the word social in it, they seem to think that's the same. They seem to be confusing a social welfare state with socialism. Almost basically every country in Europe is a social welfare state, but that has nothing to do with socialism. Socialism is something completely different. Just because both has the word social in it doesn't mean it's the same thing. And yes, some communists, maybe because they don't understand it either, in the US, for example, you know, some communists in the US, because they don't understand it, they're advocating social welfare and stuff too. But that doesn't mean that it has anything to do with socialism. And actually, this is how it played out in Europe. They were at the beginning, the communists and socialists, they were advocating social welfare. They have achieved that. Every country in Europe is basically a social welfare state. There's a lot of social. There is welfare. There is healthcare. A lot of social programs, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I agree, but it has nothing to do with socialism, and that's why once they have achieved that goal, the socialists were not satisfied. They weren't saying, oh great, now we have a social welfare state. That's great. We achieved what we wanted. No, that's not what they want. They don't want a social welfare state. They want socialism, which is something completely different. That's why, even though basically every country in Europe is now a social welfare state, the communists are not at all happy. Now first they were advocating social welfare, and now they're slandering social welfare. They're saying, no, we're not satisfied. We don't want this at all. It's not what they imagine it to be. You know, they're not satisfied. Of course they're not satisfied because they want socialism. And socialism is something completely different. It has nothing to do with social welfare. There is basically no social welfare at all in socialism. You know, socialism is a state economy. Everything is run by the state. You work for the state. If you don't want to work, it's not like they're gonna give you welfare. They're gonna put you in a labor camp and make you work. If you don't want to work in a labor camp, well, they will have ways to make you work. You can be sure of that. So there is nothing. There is no social welfare in socialism. So it has nothing to do with social welfare. So don't get confused by that. I just wanted to clear that up real fast. And actually, I know some guys from East Germany, and they have actually been sent to prison for a long time, and they only came out of prison after East Germany dissolved. And the reason why they were sent to prison was not for any political reason, not for any crime or anything, but it was just that basically the state in East Germany, the state basically determines. The state is the only employer. There is no private employer. There's only the state. And of course, the state will give you a job, but since everything is state controlled, it also means that the state will kind of tell you what job you will do. And if you don't want the job the state allocates you, well, too bad. And if you complain about it and say, well, I don't, well, it's not like those people that were imprisoned because of that. It's not that they didn't want to work. They did want to work. They just wanted another job than what the state was choosing for them. They just wanted to choose their own job. And because of that, they were labeled as people who refused to work, and they were put in prison because of that. So, those socialists, they might be advocating social welfare now, and they might be advocating, that people don't have to work if they don't want to. But believe me, once they truly have socialism, they will make everybody work. Well, except maybe the high-ranking party members, But that's the whole idea of socialism, is that everything is state-controlled, that everything has, has to have a job, and is working for the state. That's the whole point. They're advocating equality. If there's some guy who says, well, no, I don't want to work, just give me welfare, I'm not going to work, well, that's not equality, is it? So the other socialists who have to work, they will be kind of upset by it, and they will put him in prison. So it's it's not at all what you have imagined. And it really doesn't have anything to do with Sweden.